what's up everybody? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe for another action figure review, and today we're taking a look at the brand new Mafex Jean Grey. And I'm excited about this figure, but at the same time, I'm a little skeptical, or I'm a little reluctant to get too excited because I have two other Mafex female comic book figures, one of them being the Dark Knight Returns Robin, which I think is a pretty good figure, and the other being the X-Men Psylocke. And Psylocke is okay, but she definitely could have been better. And you know, I just don't know. I don't know how this Jean figure is going to turn out. I hope it's awesome because I want a good Jean Grey figure. And I'm not crazy about the Marvel Legends ones. They're okay, but they've always kind of left me wanting more. And I really, feel like Mafex could give us a satisfying Jean Grey figure. But based on some of their previous female figures, I'm just a little... I don't want to get my hopes up too high, you know. So we'll see, but let's go ahead and get right into it. Starting off with the packaging, you are able to see Jean through the window here along with her accessories. Up front we get a look at Jean, and then it says Jean Grey X-Men, and then right here we get this cool looking panel that reminds me of old school comics where it has like the character on the side and then some numbering and stuff. On the side of the box it does say Jean Grey, and we get another look at the figure. Then it says X-Men. On the back of the box, we get a look at the figure in a bunch of cool different poses, and then we get a look at some of the accessories that she comes with. On this side, we get another shot of the figure and some more comic book type of artwork, so that's awesome. Down here, we get a bunch of bullshit, and that's about it. The box is collector friendly and all that good stuff, but enough about the box. Let's get Jean out and take a look. And so here we have Jean right out of the box, and I'm very happy to say that I like this figure quite a bit. I think that Mafex did a great job with it. She looks awesome. She's very well sculpted. The paintwork on her is pretty good for the most part. There are some areas that could have been a little bit crisper and cleaner, but there's no major sloppiness and there's no major imperfections. For the most part, the paint does look really good. And I like the colors that they chose. I know that the yellow-orange areas of Jean are like inconsistent. Like in the comics it seems like they're always a different color, and then in the animated series it was more like an orange color, but I like the color that they went with here. It's a nice contrast against the dark blue, and the blue looks nice too. It kind of has a metallic shine to it, which is awesome. And the yellow areas have more of like a matte finish, so I like the contrast between the shininess of the blue and the matte finish of the yellow. I think it looks nice. But yeah, man, look at her. She's a great looking figure. You have to be careful because her hair is kind of crazy, so it could kind of push her head forward and make her look like she's hunched over. But if you position it right, she looks pretty badass. Look at that. Yeah, that is awesome. I really like the way this figure looks. Some of the articulation is a little bit limited, but we'll talk about that when we get to the articulation. So that's one thing where I was like, oh, this could have been better. But aside from that, I think she's great. And another thing that I was kind of worried about is that on the shoulder pads, like in the packaging, it was kind of like this, so you could see the yellow in there. And then I thought that was going to be an issue. I thought like maybe the shoulder pad doesn't go over far enough, but it does. You just have to lift it, and you can also lift up her shoulder to help bring it over more, and then you could get most of that yellow covered up, and then, you know, it's not an issue whatsoever. So there we go. But yeah, man, I think she's a great looking figure, and I'm excited to finally have an awesome Jean Grey figure. In my mind, this is Jean Grey. You know, I know this isn't like her most popular look or anything, but this is the look that I grew up on. So whenever I think of Jean Grey, this is the first look that I think of, and then followed by the Phoenix looks. Man, I would love a Mafex Phoenix Jean Grey, the green version and the dark version, or the the Dark Phoenix red version. I'd be down for both of those. But yeah, this is a great figure. But let's go ahead and get in close and take a look at the details on her. Starting off with the head, I think they did a pretty good job with this. It's very well sculpted. The paint is very cleanly applied. As you can see, the eyes are very crisp. The lips look good. The eyebrows look good. And everything about this face sculpt is very well done. So yeah, they did a great job with it. I think it looks like the character, and it's very well done. The hair looks good too, but I do wish that there was a little bit of shading in here because it's basically just one color. But it's very well sculpted, and it looks good. But yeah, I think they could have put a little bit of paint work in there, and it would have looked a lot better. But aside from that, I think this is a great looking head sculpt. Then moving down into the body, you can see that the blue has like a metallic kind of shine to it, which looks very nice. And this right here is something that kind of annoys me. I wish it was a little easier to get the shoulder pads to cover all the yellow right in there. It's possible, but once you start moving the figure around, then things kind of shift. But yeah, the paintwork for the most part looks really good, except for like right there on the little armband thing. You could see it's not quite as crisp as you'd want it. It's not bad or anything, but it could have been cleaner. This side looks cleaner, so that's cool. But then like down here on the leg things, it looks good, but it's just a little fuzzy, you know? Not horrible, but I feel like it could have been done just slightly better, you know? But I love the colors that they used here. The yellow and the metallic blue look really good together. And most of these blue pieces are sculpted on, like this is sculpted, and it's kind of hard to feel if there's like a difference in the sculpt between the yellow and the blue. I think there's like a little line in there, so it's not just painted on. There's a very slight little line, like a sculpt line in there, if that makes any sense. And then we do have the belt that looks really good. The belt is a floating piece, so it gets out of the way when you're messing with the figure. I kind of want to glue that down though. We'll see if I end up doing that, but the belt looks good. And not a whole lot going on down here at the feet and the lower legs. But yeah, man, I think the figure looks really, really good. There is some paint work that could have been slightly better, but aside from that, I'm very, very happy with the way this figure looks. And then for accessories, Jean doesn't come with a whole lot of stuff, but we do get some cool things, including multiple sets of hands. So first off, we have a set of open, relaxed hands. And then we have a pair of fists. And then we have a set of open hands that have her hands like flat, kind of like fingers fully extended. And then we have a set of open dramatic hands. And then for the final set of hands, we get a pair that has some power effects on them. And I like the way they did this. It's not an effect that clips onto the hand. It's a whole nother hand that you could stick onto the wrist there. That way you don't have to worry about the effect coming off or anything. But I think this looks pretty good. Jean's powers are kind of hard to display in action figure form, but I think these do a pretty good job with it. They might be just a little big though, but I like the way that she looks when she has them on, so I'm happy with them. And Jean does come with 3 different head sculpts. This is the first one. It's the one that we've already looked at, but it does look really good. It's very well sculpted, nice paint work, and this is probably my favorite out of the 3 head sculpts. But yeah, this is a nice one. And then for the second head sculpt, we get a much more angry facial expression, and I think this is very cool too. It's very well sculpted. The eyes and lips all look good, but one thing that's kind of driving me crazy about this head sculpt is the paint where the face meets the mask. I feel like the skin color kind of overlaps the mask just a tiny bit, and it catches my eye and it kind of makes me mad. You could kind of see it, not like a huge deal, and it's even hard to make out on camera here. But in person, I was able to notice it. See just a little bit right there where the mask meets the face. The skin color is on the mask just a little bit. And I don't know how I could clean that up, to be honest. It's too close to the face. But we'll see. We'll see how it turns out in pictures. Hopefully it's not noticeable. But I still think this is a pretty good head sculpt. And then for the final head, we have an unmasked Jean Grey head sculpt. And this looks really good. They did a great job with the paint work. It's very well sculpted. The eyes look nice. The lips look good. This is an awesome looking head sculpt. Especially from like this angle right here. Boom. Look at that. That looks really good. No wonder why Wolverine and Cyclops were fighting over her. They must have both seen her from this angle. Bam, look at that. That's a beautiful looking head sculpt. Yeah, they did a great job with it. The hair looks good too. I do wish that there was some shading in there, you know, just like the other head sculpt. But as it is, it looks pretty nice. And I like that they gave us the effect to put around the lower neck to make it look like she removed her mask. So that's always awesome. But yeah, this is a great looking head sculpt. I really like the way this came out. From like certain angles, it's perfect. And then for some size comparisons, here we have Jean Grey in the middle of a love triangle with the Mafex Wolverine and the Mafex Cyclops. And I think she looks really good next to them, although I do feel like Wolverine is a little bit taller than he should be. I think that Jean Grey looks really good with Cyclops. And I think that Mafex is doing a great job with the 90s X-Men stuff. Hopefully they keep it up. And then for some more 90s X-Men action, here we have Jean alongside the Mafex Gambit and the Mafex Psylocke. Psylocke was an okay figure, but I don't know. I think I was just expecting a little bit more posability. I still think she looks great, and she looks nice alongside the other 90s X-Men. But on the other side, Gambit is definitely one of my favorite Mafex figures, and one of my favorite figures out of like all of my collection. I love that Gambit. I think that Mafex killed it. And again, it's cool to have like all these 90s X-Men all together. And then next up we have Jean alongside the Marvel Legends Lovers Triangle 3-pack Jean Grey and the Marvel Legends Animated Series Wolverine. And I think this Wolverine looks pretty good next to the Mafex Jean. I think that height-wise he scales a little bit better than the Mafex Wolverine. But yeah, I think they look pretty good together. And then next up here we have Jean alongside the Marvel Legends Jubilee and the Marvel Legends Beast with the custom head from May Shelf. And then next up we have Jean alongside the Marvel Legends Storm and the Marvel Legends Rogue. And although I think that Hasbro did a great job on both of these figures, I'm sure the Mafex Storm is going to be way better than the Legends version. And I would really like to see Mafex's take on Rogue. But if they never get to it, I'm perfectly happy with this Legends version. I think they killed it. This one is really nice. But I'm sure that Mafex could do something that's a step above this one. So it would be cool to see them do that, to have Rogue to go along with Gambit and the rest of the 90s X-Men. And then of course we have her alongside the Marvel Legends Bucky Cap and Marvel Legends Pizza Spider-Man. And then lastly, here we have Jean Grey alongside the Marvel Legends Professor X. And I would like to see another company take a stab at Professor X. Even though this Legends one is pretty damn amazing, imagine how crazy a Mafex or Mezco Professor X would be. And I do think that Jean does have some great articulation, although there are some areas that are somewhat limited and some joints that don't get the range that I've come to expect from Mafex. I still think the figure's capable of getting into any type of pose that you'd want for the character, and it's been a lot of fun to play with, so I'm happy with what we have going on here. But let's go ahead and take a look starting off at the head. So obviously the head is going to be a little restricted because of the amount of hair, but she does have movement at the lower neck and at the upper neck, so using both of those we get some pretty good tilt going on. Could tilt this way as well, but you have to kind of work your way around the hair. And then she can look left to right, but the hair does get in the way a little bit. She could look down to about right there, which is pretty good, but she can't really look up too much, you know, because the hair does get in the way. If you want to get her to look up, you're going to have to get some help from the torso joint. But, you know, that doesn't look very natural. So yeah, can't really look up too much. But that's to be expected with like this design and this much hair, you know. So it is what it is. And then for the torso, she does have a diaphragm cut and a ball joint at the waist. So using both of those, she could crunch forward a pretty good amount. Yeah, look at that. That's pretty good. And then she could lean back a really good amount as well. And then we do get some side-to-side movement. Most of the side-to-side is coming from the waist. But yeah, I like this torso setup. You could really use it to get figures into dynamic poses. So yeah, I really like how Mafex does their torsos. And then obviously it can swivel side to side from the waist, but not so much from the diaphragm. So most of your side to side swivel is going to come from the waist. Damn, it's a little squeaky. And then for the arms, she does have these awesome butterfly joints that we are used to seeing from Mafex. I'm always a fan of those. Hers are a little restricted as well because of the shoulder pads, but you could still get them back a pretty good amount, which is nice. And you could get her arms in front of her a really good amount too. You just kind of have to twist things around. And the shoulder pad is connected to the shoulder joint, so it just kind of moves around with it. But yeah, you could get her arm in front of her a pretty good amount if you want to get her into like punching poses. I know punching's not necessarily Jean Grey's thing. I'm sure she could fight, but you know, she's mostly known to use her powers. So there we go. Yeah, look at that. That's a pretty decent punching pose. So yeah, Mafex always does a great job with the shoulder joints. But on Jean, it's a little restricted because of the shoulder pads. And then her arm is able to go all the way around, and as you can see, the shoulder pad just kind of travels with it. So that's nice. And then you could bring her arms up to the side a really good amount, especially considering these shoulder pads. They don't really get in the way of the upward movement whatsoever. And then she does have upper bicep swivel. She has double jointed elbows, but the elbows are a little limited. Check this out. They only bend to about right there, which kind of caught me by surprise because it's only like slightly more than 90, so it's not a whole lot. And then at the wrist, she has a ball joint that can swivel around and hinge and all that good stuff. And then for the legs actually get really good movement. Check this out. So she does have the drop down hips, and when you drop them down, they could go forward a really good amount. Look at that. so that's nice. Damn. Then you could bring it to the side a really good amount as well. Look at this sidekick. Look at that, that's crazy. Yeah, so that's really good. Bam. And then she does have like an upper thigh swivel hidden in the joint up there, so you don't get like the most range, but it's still pretty good. You could swivel about that much. And then she does have double jointed knees. They get really good range. I wish the elbows were able to move about that much, but it's all good. I'm happy to see that the knees could do it. And then at the foot, she does have a ball joint, so we have a swivel. You could hinge to right there, come up to right there, and a little bit of rocking action. And then she does have a toe hinge. So yeah, like I said, there are some limitations, but I think for the most part, her articulation is pretty good. The only thing that I wish was different really is the elbows. Because everything else kind of makes sense why it's limited. You know, the shoulder pads kind of restrict the shoulders a little bit. The hair restricts the head. That's all understandable. But I don't know why the elbows have such limited range. You know, I feel like they should have more movement there. But still, overall, I think the figure's a lot of fun to play with, and it's definitely the most posable Jean Grey available. So I'm happy with it. Alrighty, so overall, at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, the dust settles, and it's all said and done, I think that Jean Grey came out pretty damn awesome. I'm really happy with this figure, and I think that Mafex did a great job with it. I think she looks amazing. She's got some great sculpting work. She has some nice paint, although I do feel like there are some areas where the paint could have been a little bit cleaner and crisper. And I think, you know, for a figure that costs this much, we really want the paint to be as close to perfect as possible. I know that perfection is an unrealistic expectation, but I do think that for the price, we don't want to see any fuzziness or anything. We want all the lines to be crisp and everything to be almost perfect. I don't know if I could say that's the case with Jean. I would say that the paint is really good, but there are some areas that could have been crisper and cleaner. But, you know, nothing that's like sloppy or nothing that is necessarily like an eyesore. But, you know, when you get a figure that costs this much and you start inspecting it and getting in close and taking a look at things, you'll notice certain things that you don't want to see at this price point. But I think for the most part, the figure does have some nice paint and she looks amazing. I'm very happy with the way she looks. And articulation is okay, although there are some areas that are kind of limited. I still think that you are able to get enough movement out of the figure to hit the poses that are required for a character like Jean Grey. So I'm happy with the articulation. I think she looks amazing alongside the other Mafex X-Men figures. And man, Mafex, they're just killing it when it comes to comic book figures. And I love how they do certain eras or like story arcs and things like that. And I really hope that they continue to do so. I would love to see more 90s era X-Men, especially like villains. They haven't done a whole lot of villains for Marvel. I know they have Magneto on the way, but I would love to see like Sabretooth or Pyro or Avalanche or somebody like that, especially Sabretooth, because I feel like nobody has made a good Sabretooth in probably like 15 years. The last good Sabretooth figure that was released, in my opinion, is the Marvel Legends Face Off First Appearance Sabretooth. That's the last Creed figure that I really, really liked. Hasbro hasn't put out a good one in my opinion, although I will say the Age of Apocalypse one is pretty cool, but aside from that, there's not a whole lot of good Sabretooth action figures out there, which is crazy because he's one of like the biggest villains, you know? Or I would say he's one of the most well-known villains. And the reason I say that is because my mom knows who Sabretooth is. If my mom knows the character, I consider it well-known. So, there we go. But I would love to see a Mafex Sabretooth and just more 90s stuff, because they're killing it, man. They're killing it with these 90s designs. They're killing it in Marvel and DC. And I love how they do specific things, you know, specific eras, specific comic book runs. They're killing it all over the place. So I'm very happy with what Mafex has going on. And yeah, like I said, I think that Jean looks really good alongside the other 90s X-Men. And it's nice to have a really good posable Jean Grey, because Hasbro has given us a few, but, you know, they just come on like the standard female bodies. They're not very posable. They look okay, but for the most part, they leave a lot to be desired. This figure pretty much gives me everything that I would want out of a Jean Grey figure. So yeah, if I never get another Jean Grey figure, I'm happy to have one in my collection that I'm satisfied with. So there we go. And with that, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Also, be sure to hit the bell notification so you know every time that I go live. If you're not aware, I do go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. and every Friday at 7 p.m. and some Sundays to talk about comics. So come through, let's talk about toys, comics, and get weird. Thank you very much. Peace.